everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a video on our Acura Legend here. As you know, this car's been sitting for the last couple of months while we've taken care of the head gasket issue. And before we put it back on the road, we want to take care of an important component, and that's the fuel system. We've got a new fuel filter over there, but our fuel pump is over 30 years old and has over 130,000 miles on it. Today, modern fuels have a lot of ethanol content in there, and that ethanol has a corrosive property to it with these older cars especially. They weren't designed to have that much ethanol in them. So we're going to be replacing the fuel pump preemptively. It's a fairly easy job on this car, thankfully, so we're going to show you how we go about doing that. Once we get that new fuel pump in there, it's really going to cement that this car is ready to get back on the road. And we'll go ahead and show you in a future video how we start it up for the first time and take it out on the road for the first time. But for now, let's go ahead and get into the content and show you how to replace that fuel pump. Alright, let's go ahead and go over the parts that you'll need for this job. Now, there's two different gaskets here. One is for the sending unit and one is for the actual fuel pump unit to reseal everything. So here's your part numbers for both if you're going to do both. But if you're only going to do the fuel pump, you're only going to need one of these, obviously. Now, you got to have a new sock. This sock goes into the pump and actually acts as a screen so that it doesn't pull in, large pieces of non-fuel, if you will, or contamination that has occurred in your pump. This could be rust particles. This could be, something that got accidentally introduced into the fuel system. You don't want to suck that up, so that's what that screen's for. Additionally, I have a new Delphi pump. Now, this pump right here is specific to the coupe. If you have a sedan, there is a different fuel pump for the sedan. The reason for that, not quite sure, but just make sure that you get your specific fuel pump. Now, you can do different fuel pumps on this, but I'm going to go ahead with this Delphi one. I bought it a couple years ago. It's been sitting on the shelf just because you never know when your fuel pump's going to go. So we'll go ahead and take care of that. Now, to get ready for the car part of this, you want to go ahead and disconnect your negative terminal on your battery. So make sure that you have your radio code secure before you go ahead and do that. If you have a anti-theft system in your car where you have to program in a code into the radio. But rather than that, this is a pretty simple job. You can see here you're going to need basic hand tools. You're going to have to remove the rear seat, and then you're going to have to remove the top of the fuel pump housing itself. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. Okay, so we're in the back seat of the Acura Legend, and what we need to do is remove the bottom portion of this seat. And the best way to do that is to lift up on the bottom and then slide the bottom out. And you'll see that there's little prongs on this car on the back of the seat, and they are right here, and they slide underneath. Once we've gotten this bottom part out, we can go ahead and remove this from the car. And we'll go ahead and slide that right out of our way. Okay, so now what we need to do is locate the 10mm bolts that hold the back part of the seat in, because we're looking to gain access to the portion where our fuel pump is. So there's two here. We've got one on the right side and we've got one on the left side here. Just a 10mm bolt. So, and if you're familiar with the Acura Legend, you got these little smoker bolt holders on the side, which come in pretty handy. So we'll use those to store them while we work on the car. And then there should be a lift up to get this portion out. Okay. So we got one side out, we're working on our other side here. So you can kind of see how we're doing this. We're just lifting up and releasing it from its hold. Now we can pull this portion of the seat out and it can exit the car. Okay, the next thing you want to do is come back to the trunk and remove these two little fasteners right here. This will allow you to remove the whole bottom piece and pull it back. We'll just fold it over like that for our purposes, and then we'll go back into the car. Okay, now back into the car, you can see that this is what we actually want to gain access to. So we've pushed the trunk back, the contents of the trunk back a little bit, and now we have access to this location. This is where we're going to access the fuel pump and go ahead and replace it. All right, with the screws removed, you can see that we now have access to our fuel pump and our fuel sending unit. So the purpose here is that we want to be able to gain access to the fuel pump over on the right hand side. And if you want to go ahead and take a look at your fuel sending unit, that would be on the left. Now we've got a bunch of dirt and debris right here that we don't want to introduce into the tank. So we're going to go ahead and get a vacuum and suck that up. All right, with everything degreased, cleaned up, vacuumed out, we're ready to start removing our fuel pump. To do that, we want to make sure that we remove the electrical connector before we go too far. Make sure that we don't have a connection to our fuel pump active. All right, now with everything removed, the boot out of the way, we can remove this 2-pin connector. We'll remove that and set it off to the side. Now we have access to our fuel line. So here's our pressurized fuel line coming out of the pump. You can tell by the metal line here. And this is our return line, so low pressure coming back into the fuel tank. And this is going to be a 17mm bolt that I've already loosened. And then we'll go ahead and remove this spring right here, the spring clamp, by just simply taking our pliers and going like this, and then we'll go ahead and remove those two lines. This will then prepare us to remove these 10mm bolts that go all the way around. There is a stay right here that you'll want to remove, 10mm, and probably the best way to do that is with a wrench like this to get in there, because this little tab gets in your way. All right, now that we've got the bolts undone for the fuel pump, it pretty much just lifts out. The only thing that you have to do is kind of navigate the fuel lines out of your way and just gently twist and pull until you've gotten the pump to this point. Now, right now I'm letting the sock drain back into the tank, and we'll go ahead and clean this up and put in our new fuel pump. All right, we've got our fuel pump assembly right here. We're going to go ahead and remove that original fuel pump, and we're going to remove that old sock, as well as put in a new line that goes between the pump and the hose. New gasket all the way around. You can see that this pump is significantly larger than what we're going to be working with, so let me go ahead and pull that out. Here's our new pump. Really efficient pump, so difference there you can see. This is going to be an interesting upgrade. I think that the efficiency in the new pump will be a big game changer for us on starting this car. All right, here's our new pump. We've got it all set. We've got the cushion at the bottom there. We've got it all wired up, and the new line, as well as the clamps. We also put a new gasket at the top there, so that it'll have a nice seal. So now what we've got to do is go ahead and put this back in the vehicle, make sure that it all fits correctly, and then test its operation. It's pretty much straightforward from here. I put in a quick disconnect so that when I pull the pump out for whatever reason, that the ground wire will have the ability to quickly disconnect. And we've gone ahead and shrink wrapped everything so that hopefully it will keep it a little bit more watertight. But that should be it for the most part. All right, we've got everything reconnected. As you can see right here, we got the electrical connection and our fuel lines, both return and supply. And the car is actually running right now, and it's important to do that because you want to make sure that there's no fuel leaks. if you button everything back up and then you turn the car on, you may not be aware that there are fuel leaks. So we've actually got the car running right now. It's running really smooth and correct for our new fuel pump replacement. Now when you first start the car up, you want to cycle that key a couple times because you've taken all the pressure out of the system here. So turn it on about 3-4 times, prime that fuel system, and that'll make sure that you have a good first start. So we're going to go ahead and button everything back up here, and we're going to go take it for a test drive. It's important that you take it for a test drive under controlled situations. That way, if the fuel sloshes to one side, your sock isn't quite positioned correctly, and it starves of fuel, you'll find that out real quick. So don't take a long drive, but take a short drive around in your neighborhood and kind of go through some various different angles if you can to make sure that that fuel pump is getting the fuel it needs to the engine. So we'll go ahead and do that, and that'll wrap us up on this video, and we'll see you on the next one.